Donald Trump says that a Great Depression is coming, and he's right, Michael Snyder says. Do you believe Donald Trump? He's entirely convinced that if we stay on the path that we are currently on, we're heading into a Great Depression, quote unquote, and many believe that he's right on target. Unemployment is rising, manufacturing activity is contracting, bankruptcies are soaring, home sales have fallen to depressingly low levels, the cost of living crisis never seems to end, poverty is soaring, and the homelessness is at the highest level ever recorded. Since Barack Obama first entered the White House, our politicians in Washington have been propping up the economy by adding $25 trillion to the national debt, and now our national debt has crossed the $35 trillion mark, and our politicians continue to spend money at a pace that is absolutely absurd. But despite this tremendous influx of borrowed cash, the wheels are starting to come off the U.S. economy anyway. This week, everyone is talking about a recession because of what has been happening in the financial markets. Prior to Tuesday's session, more than $6 trillion in global stock market wealth had already been wiped out. Bloomberg estimates that approximately $6.4 trillion has been erased from the value of global stock markets over the past 3 weeks. Investors were desperately hoping for a bounce on Tuesday, but the Dow Jones Industrial Average only jumped 294 points. Needless to say, this is not the bounce that they were looking for. The turmoil that we have witnessed on Wall Street in recent days also caught the attention of Donald Trump. On Truth Social, he blamed crashing stock prices on Kamala Harris, and he warned that a Great Depression is on the way. Trump took to Truth Social to blast Harris for the Kamala crash in a series of posts. Of course, there is a massive market downturn. Kamala is even worse than Crooked Joe. Markets will never accept the radical left lunatic that destroyed San Francisco and California as a whole, Trump wrote. And he added, next move, the Great Depression of 2024. You can't play games with markets. Kamala crash. Of course, Trump is in the middle of trying to win an election, and his goal was to make Kamala Harris look bad. But he is quite right that if we stay on the road that we are on, it will only end up in disaster. Last Friday, the Shaham rule was triggered when the unemployment rate went up again. The SAM rule, created by the Federal Reserve, the former Federal Reserve official Claudia Sam, triggers when the unemployment rate's 3 months moving average moves 50 basis points above its 12-month low. The rule was triggered Friday, with the moving average rising 53 basis points above that one-year trough, according to the real-time SAM rule recession indicator from the St. Louis Federal Reserve. The SAM rule has successfully predicted every single recession since 1970, and it's indicating that another recession is here. Sadly, the unemployment rate is likely to go even higher during the months ahead because large companies all over America continue to conduct mass layoffs. Today we learned that Dell is planning another round of mass layoffs. While Dell has confirmed the layoffs, it has not revealed how many employees are losing their jobs. SiliconANGLE reports that roughly 12,500 Dell employees are being laid off this week, citing an unnamed source. Impacted employees are primarily on Dell's sales and marketing teams. A layoff tracker has since reported the same number. Former Dell employee Ian Armstrong, who previously worked on the company's UX design team for 8 years, called the layoffs a bloodbath in a post, reporting that Dell has now laid off 24,500 staff in the past 15 months. Meanwhile, the cost of living crisis continues to crush working families all over the nation. At this point, it takes an additional $1,000 a month for the typical U.S. household to buy the same exact goods and services that it did 3 years ago. The typical U.S. household needed to pay $227 more a month in March to purchase the same goods and services it did 1 year ago because of still high inflation, according to calculations from Moody's Analytics chief economist Mark Zandi, shared on Fox Business. Americans are paying an average of $784 more each month compared with the same time 2 years ago, and $1,069 more compared with 3 years ago before the inflation crisis began. Consumer spending has always been so critical to U.S. economy. And at this point, a very large portion of the population is simply tapped out. This is one of the primary reasons why credit card debt is at an all-time high and credit card delinquencies are soaring into the stratosphere. Credit card delinquencies continue to rise from their pre-pandemic levels in the second quarter. As of June, about 9.1% of outstanding credit card debt was in some stage of delinquency, up from 8.5% the previous quarter. The rise in credit card usage and debt is particularly concerning because interest rates are astronomically high right now. The average credit card annual percentage rate, APR, hit a new record of 20.73% last week, according to a bank rate database that goes back to 1985. The previous record was 19% in July 1991. Of course, it is not just millions of consumers that have reached a breaking point. As I discussed a few days ago, we're witnessing a very alarming surge in business bankruptcies. Over the past year, business bankruptcy filings are up 40.3% and have now reached a number not seen since the second quarter of 2020 at the peak of lockdowns. American households are following along, with total bankruptcy filings up 16.2% in the past year, including 132,710 new filings in the second quarter of 2024 alone. A 40% increase in 1 year is quite serious, and every day even more businesses are going belly up. Here's one of the last examples. A popular Italian restaurant chain has filed for bankruptcy just days after it abruptly shut 13 underperforming locations across the U.S. Court documents filed just before midnight on Sunday show Buca di Beppo owes as much as $50 million, yet has assets of under $50,000. Last week, the chain, known for its family-style dishes and vintage decor, permanently closed restaurants in California and Florida. It also shut its last remaining locations in Michigan and Pennsylvania. It's a horror show out there. According to the SAM rule, a new recession is now upon us. But if Donald Trump is correct, something even worse is looming. Unfortunately, most people just don't get it. If people really understand what's on the horizon, we would be behaving very differently. Most of the population is still convinced that things will turn around just fine somehow. And for the moment, ignorance is bliss. This is by Michael Snyder on the Economic Collapse blog. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. This is by Michael Snyder. About the author, Michael Snyder's extremely controversial new book entitled Chaos is available in paperback and for Kindle on Amazon. He's also written 7 other books that are available on Amazon, including End Times, 7-Year Apocalypse, Lost Prophets and the Future of America, The Beginning of the End, and Living a Life That Really Matters. When you purchase any of Michael's books, you help to support the work he's doing. You can also get his articles by email as soon as he publishes them by subscribing to his Substack newsletter. Michael has published thousands of articles on the Economic Collapse blog, End of the American Dream, and the Most Important News. And he always freely and happily allows others to republish those articles on their own websites. These are such troubled times and people need hope. John 3:16 tells us about the hope that God has given us through Jesus Christ. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life. If you have not already done so, we strongly urge you to invite Jesus Christ to be your Lord and Savior today. Finally, support my Patreon account. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below.